The government is the judge standing in court to judge a criminal. So they are the criminals and the judge. Those people are incapable of providing reforms to crimes and corruption they created. This is as simple as that. I mean, we can talk about whether capital control is feasible now, or whether if we do IMF plan. Okay, do IMF plan. It gives you $3 billion over 5 years and condition it to blah, blah, blah. But so what? We are in a gap of over $100 billion.
Walid, when you look at the scenes coming out from Lebanon, of the angry people storming into banks such as Salih Hafiz, are we talking about in separated, isolated, individual acts of desperation, or is it something that is likely to morph into a wider protest movement in Lebanon?
I think given the current circumstances, this is going to, it's a snowball, it's going to grow. People will, day after day, believe more and more that this is the only way to do it. If we go back a bit, we see what have been happening, especially since December. In December, Central Bank issued the Resolution 161, where there's the Sayarafa, which is another price of the dollar. In Lebanon, we have around 6-7 prices of the US dollars, so which is less than the black market. You can go to the bank and exchange fresh Lebanese pounds for dollars with a rate less than the black market. Then you go sell it to the black market, and the difference is coming from nowhere. The controls are becoming more and more tight. Now, if you have a bank account, you can withdraw from the bank between, depending on your deposits, between 5 to 10 million, maybe 15 as a maximum, millions a month. So you can have something from $150 to around $400 maximum a month, while the inflation rates are very high. So this is, most people will get around less than $200, which is not enough, even from their sellers. We're not talking about from their long-term deposits. So people are suffocating day after day. And I think what's going to happen after the banks reopen on Thursday, on Thursday, they will have more security measures. Maybe their front offices will be closed, but back offices. And it's only a matter of time when someone will be more creative to come with a different idea to hold up the bank so that they can get their deposits. So if we don't look at this, the problem as a whole and try to find the real solutions, we won't expect from the people to do anything less. Mm-hmm. But this is only part, which is the bank's part. But another thing which is becoming more and more seen in Lebanon is acts of violence, people being stopped or stabbed, being robbed of money, going out of cash machines or from exchange offices. The crime rate is increasing. And on the other hand, the security is very loose. The police is paid something like $40, $50 a month, so they don't even want to work. Many are fleeing. So we are in a very serious condition. And on the other hand, on a political level, there's no actually, this is a caretaking government. Okay. The term of the president is about to end. So we are in a deadlock, and we are more going to a total political vacuum. I think we need to be very smart in getting solutions, maybe outside the system in the coming few weeks.
Sami, if you look at the data by the World Bank, we're talking about the local currency, which is the lira, which has been depreciated by something like 90%. 80% of the population now lives below the poverty line. We're talking about what was for decades the pride of the Lebanese nation, its middle class, is almost decimated.
Yes, definitely. And this will be very difficult to rebuild, because all the people who have fled this time, they fled with the expectation of no return. Because why? Because for the last 3 years, they tried. to change things. They took it to the street. They operated, or they had a very beautiful revolution. All the street were filled. All the places from the extreme south to the extreme north, from Beirut to the Bekaa, they tried through peaceful means to dislodge this ruling elite, and the result after the election, the establishment found its way for a comeback. And this is plunging the population into a despair. And this middle class you were talking about has been, it's feeling this, the grudges, the despair on one side, and it is impoverished, because the average salary today does not exceed $50. A judge in the public administration, his monthly salaries does not exceed $300. A soldier in the army, we're talking here about a $50 salary. How you can, with this level of salaries, of earnings, sustain a state? So all the indicators concur to say that it's not only about a falling of the Lebanese state, but a destructuring of the Lebanese society.
Okay.
So it's more than this important aspect, which is the collapse of the middle class, but it's the destructuring of the Lebanese society.
Hassan, the IMF in particular and the international community said this time we would like to see some genuine financial and economic reform. We don't want to see or hear about any cosmetic reform. And one of the main preconditions by the IMF, they said to the president, to the government, and to the parliament, we want you to increase taxes, particularly custom taxes. But it seems that the government is afraid to move ahead with this because they're just afraid of a popular backlash. Give us your intake on how should the government deal with this in particular?
Sir, I've spoken personally to some of the delegations of the IMF during their presence in Beirut. And I say it on public TV, and I'm responsible for what I say. Some of the officials of the IMF despise Lebanese officials. They know that they are cheating them, and they know there will be no reform. So increase custom taxes as well is not a magic solution. You take it out of the drawer and you implement it. You increase customs on in a normal economy which is trying to recover. Our problem, apart from the systematic problem I mentioned politically, we have a problem of banking sector. You cannot reignite an economy so that it goes back to normalcy without a proper functioning banking sector. The bank owners are behaving as well as politicians, if not worse, very irresponsibly. As well as the depositors are in denial that they lost their deposit, the bank owners are in denial that their banks are bankrupt. The banks are not able to finance a recovery of the economy because they lack capital and dollars, and we need proper banking in order to reignite the economy. What's the solution? Is that you have to insulate and isolate the current bankers into bad banks, the current politicians into useless politicians, and bring fresh banks in the country with fresh investments so that we can go back to what we call gradually normal economy, and we can reignite whether agriculture, industry, commerce, and the like. Unfortunately, those populations and those bankers are so much empowered, they will prevent this. So we are in a vicious circle. The IMF will not be able, and they are not convinced that they can do anything.
All right.
What we need as a solution, if you ask me, not the IMF, we need that international powers are convinced finally that it is in their national interest, because if they don't consider it's in their national interest to do something, we're gonna go back, we're gonna go, not back, we're gonna move very fast into a Somalia situation where there's a failed state for the last 30 or 40 years. Lebanon needs international pressure to insulate and pressure current politicians to step aside and build a state from scratch.
I appreciate if you can give me some very short answers, if you don't mind. Walid, You said earlier you want something outside of the system, an answer or a solution outside of the system. You know that the architecture that prevailed after the civil war was based on this consensus within the key sectarian groups in Lebanon. How can you think about a different architecture?
Basically, if you tried something for actually 30 years and it failed, it's only the stupid will try again because you'll get using the same methods because you're gonna get the same result. I think the post-Civil War political structure or architecture has proven its, how do we say it, it's not working or it's failure. When we are talking about the banking sector, we're talking about the role of the economic role of Lebanon. These are things that needs to be debated in Lebanon to have a different vision. But there's something very, very important because you talked about the middle class in Lebanon. I think it's also very remarkable to see that most of the people who are doing the holdups, the banks, are depositors with more than $10,000 or $20,000 or even a few $100. So these are the middle class who are resorting to violence to get back their money.
Walid, in less than 20 seconds, do you think that the Gulf nations will be convinced anytime in the near future to inject cash the way they used to do in the past to balance the sheets for the Lebanese government?
I think, yes, it can be so. But before that, the Iran question has to be solved in a way or another. Today, it's clear that the GCC countries don't want to think about Lebanon because of Hezbollah upper hand in the country, because at the end of the day, he's the power in place controlling all important decisions. And it is at odds with the GCC countries.
Gentlemen, I'm really sorry because we're really running out of time. Sami, Nader, Hassan Ahmad, Khalil, Walid, Fakhreddin, I really appreciate your insight. Looking forward to talking to you in the near future about this quite interesting story coming out from Lebanon. And thank you too for watching. You can see the program again anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com. For further discussion, go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on Twitter. Our handle is @AJ Inside Story. From me, Hashim Mahbara, and the entire team here in Doha. Bye for now.
On Counting the Cost, Britain's king accedes to the throne at a time of economic hardship. We'll take a look at how much the monarchy costs. Is trade a solution for Africa's battle against climate change? And quiet quitting is the latest workplace trend, but what is it? Counting the Cost on Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera. Wherever you are.
Arab music and song expresses every emotion, captures every feeling, especially love, and has its own superstars, like Fayrouz. Al Jazeera World tells the stories behind 4 iconic songs of passion, drama, infidelity, and unrequited love. Arab love songs on Al Jazeera.
Anti-Semitism is an evil, and under a Labour government it will not be tolerated in any form whatsoever.
Beneath the surface lies a darker side in British politics. The Labour Files, Part 1 on Al Jazeera.
I'm Kerry Johnson in Doha with the top stories on Al Jazeera. Ukraine's president says there's evidence of widespread torture as more bodies are found at a mass burial site in the country's east. The city of Izium was reclaimed from Russian forces last week. The Czech Republic, which holds the EU presidency, is calling for an international war crimes tribunal to be established. The head of the pro-Russian administration, which abandoned Izium, has accused Ukraine of staging atrocities.
Коли окупанти втікали, вони кинули апарати для знущання.
As the occupiers fled, they also dropped torture devices. Even at the railway station, we found a room for torture and tools for electric torture.
Катування було повсюду.
It's just a train station. Torture was a widespread practice in the occupied territory. That's what the Nazis did. We will establish all the identities of those who tortured our people, who brought this atrocity from Russia to our Ukrainian land.
Al Jazeera's Hoda Abdelhamid is following developments from Kharkiv.
It is looking gruesome on many levels. Izium is now a desolate city, completely destroyed. There's barely a building that hasn't been at least partially damaged, and I'm talking about civilian targets here, apartment blocks, schools, pharmacies, the church. So certainly a very desolate picture. And then there's now, as investigators are looking through what happened there, talking to people, they discovered this mass burial site, at least 440 graves there, some of them apparently with more than one person buried in the same plot. And investigators have to sift through all of this to figure out what happened. It is certainly a place where you really see the real toll of this war. It's a city that has been besieged, that has been bitterly fought between the two sides. It's now firmly under Ukrainian control. The soldiers are on, you see them roaming the streets, but there's barely any sign of life.
US President Joe Biden has warned Russia against using chemical or nuclear weapons in Ukraine. Biden made the remark in an interview for the program at 60 Minutes on American broadcaster CBS.
Vladimir Putin is becoming embarrassed and pushed into a corner.
ということで、1点差ゲームをものにしたというゲームになりました。8対7、ホームランが本当に乱い飛んだ。
ホームランもいっぱい出ましたし、この8対7の試合ってやっぱ面白いですね。
そうでしょうね。エンジェルスにとっては大きな、勝利でもありました。マリナーズにとってはかなり痛い勝利でも、ありますよね。
ここまで来た感じだと。
しかもあと一歩まで追い詰めながらというようなところでしたからね。もちろん、昨日の、得点を今日に大谷に取っておきたかったというところもあるんですけれども大谷翔平投手が今日は投打でどんな活躍を見せるでしょうか。現在の大谷選手のいろんな記録をちょっとまとめておりますので改めてご覧いただきます。達成したものも含めてですね、とにかく規定投球回というあと規定打席両方でまさに投打二刀流完結といきたいシーズンなんですが、普通だったら規定投球回のために長くとかあんまりメジャーもそんなないと思うんですけれども、
メジャーリーグはそこまで規定イニングにこだわることはないんですよね。ですからこれはあくまでもMVP というところをめがけてで、これチームとしてもそうですけど、もうメジャーリーグ全体がそこに注目してますよね。
本当ギリギリでも達成できるかどうかという部分でもあるんですけれども、とにかく今日のピッチングどれくらいのイニングを投げるかというところも含めて注目です。さてその中で気になるのは前回の登板で5回で実は終わってしまったということになりました。まず立ち上がり順調でしたよね。
素晴らしかったですよね。途中から三振を取りに行くといった感じでね、初回なんか打たせておうかなっていう感じでしたけど、もうスライダーツーシーム完璧でしたね。
そして面白かったのがこの3回のアルトゥーベとの対決ですね。
びっくりしましたよ。見ててもすごいですけど、このアルトゥーベが踏み込んでいくバッターですけど、ぎゅっと途中から自分の方に近づいて思わず空振りをしてしまったという意味ではもうお手上げでしょ、この瞬間で。
で結局この後6球目このスライダー、多少甘かったんですかね。
甘いんですけど、もう手も足も出ないといった状況になりました。
そしてこの回ですけども今 101.4 マイルというメジャーにやってきて最速の速球も出たと。
相当状態はいいんでしょうね。
その中で5回も楽々スライダーでマルドナーの三振、アルトゥーベもこのストレートで三振などを取って、
これもカット気味なんですよね。ちょっとかけてると思いますよ。
そうですか。5回1失点というところで、ただ6回ですね、この投球練習中にちょっと指に異変があった模様でベンチを呼びます。 豆が原因で結局ここで交代となりました。
ただこういう交代の仕方っていうのはすごくひどいってわけじゃないっていうのはね、分かりましたよね。
はい、この投球練習中に急にじゃなくて、実はその前からちょっと、大丈夫かなっていうのをちょっとベンチ伝えていたようですね。
まあ、5回も過ぎたということもありましたし、まあ、次への登板によりよく、ね、負担をかからないようにということはあったと思いますね。
はい、まあ、ですからあれ以上投げているとちょっと今後に、ね、影響はあったと本人も言ってましたけれども、まあ、ギリギリのところでやめたというね。
その後打席も入ってましたしね。
確かにね、そうですよね。まあ、その後もちろん試合までずっと打者としても出場しています。そして、まあ、予定通り今日登板となりました。そして今日対戦相手マリナーズなんですが、マリナーズの方も、まあ、ポストシーズンへ向けてね、非常に重要な残り試合。
シアトルはもうすごい勢いだと思いますよ、今。
一藤さんがいた時代以来のポストシーズンを狙うというね。ワイルドカード現在3枠に今年なっておりますが、マリナーズが現在2位のところにいます。まあ、下のオリオールズとゲーム差考えても、まあ十分大丈夫かなって感じありますけどね。
そこの部分に関してはもう大丈夫でしょうけどね。
まあ、あとはこの枠のどの順位に入るかによってね、ちょっとまた相手も変わってきますけどもね。
そうですね。
まあ、とにかくマリナーズにとってはあんまり大きな連敗はしたくない中の今日のピッチングとなってまいります。今日の試合となってまいります。さて、それではここでアベマからのお知らせです。
テレビで MLB を楽しもう。今までスマホやパソコンで見ていた MLB 中継がテレビを使えば大画面大迫力で楽しめる。 MLB 見るなら大画面のテレビで。
大谷がマウンドに上がりました。6月9日以降では9勝4敗 1.83 という防御率になっています。
1ヶ月前ぐらいからですよね。
今日はどんな大谷を見せてくるでしょうか。
ですからね、先ほども言いましたように、アルトゥーベの時、前回の時も、アウトコースのストレートもちょっとね、ちょっとしたカット気味に投げてると思うんですよね、相手ね。なんかすごい器用なピッチャーに思いますね。
なるほど。さて、マリナーズのバッティングのオーダーご覧いただいております。さあ、まずは1番クロフォードが入りました。今日は1番を任されたという JP クロフォードです。クリオ・ドルリゲスは今日は
出てない。
そうなんですね。
なぜでしょうか。
当初の発表では1番に入っていたんですけれども、何かあったんでしょうかね。当初は1番フリオ・ロドリゲス、クロフォードは6番という予定でした。
大谷投手に関してはね、これは大きい情報ですよね。
昨日のゲームでスアレスが右手指を痛めて交代をしたりして、そのスアレスも出ていなかったり、最近は腰痛でハニガンも出ていなかったりという、今日はですからフリオ・ロドリゲスがこの先発から外れたというような格好になりました。ちょっ